The night game, there is no other game to take away any attention. It's the only game played, and it's a big one. The Bills go back to Cincinnati for the first time since Week 17 of the 2022 season, the night that Damar Hamlin had cardiac arrest on the field. The game was suspended after that. They got together in the playoffs. Cincinnati won 27-10 in the snow in Buffalo. The Bengals are still favored only by 2 points in this one. That tells me that somebody thinks the Bills have found something, and that even though the Bengals won by 14 in San Francisco, that maybe they're not as back as we would think. What do you expect from the Buffalo offense after what we saw against the Buccaneers? I mean, that game on Thursday night of last week was closer than it should have been. Yeah. It felt like the Bills were on the verge of blowing it open a couple of times. They kept punting 4th and short on the other side of the 50 when it was 24-10. What do you think about this Bills offense against a Bengals defense that gets overlooked because it's all Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but that defense has been pretty good. I think back to that Monday night game against the Rams. They have been very good when they need to be.
Does anyone know what to expect out of this Bills offense? I keep waiting. I keep waiting for the consistency. I keep waiting for Josh Allen to get it done game after game after game and not make the stupid decisions and not make the big turnovers. And I've been waiting on this for a few years now. Frankly, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl, I think, a couple times over the past few years. And it's hard right now to look at this team and go, they're a Super Bowl team. They're going to win the Super Bowl because they're so inconsistent. I think they're capable of it, but I need to see it on a consistent level week after week after week, and I haven't seen that. They look good one week and not so good the next week, and you're right, they let teams hang around, and that's when you get beat. And to win in the playoffs, obviously you have to put games together. You can't have that bad game. You can't have that inconsistency. So I need to see more out of the Bills. I need to see more out of this offense. I need to see more out of Josh Allen. So, again, just like the Cowboys, I think we're going to find out a lot about the Bills and Bengals this week. Are the Bengals really back on track? And I do think they are. I think they're headed the right direction, just like last year. They started slow, and I think now you're going to have to contend with them in the postseason. I don't know about the Bills. I'm totally uncertain about the Bills and where they are.
They started the season with that weird, bizarre Monday night game where they lost in overtime to the Jets. Then they had 3 straight games of complete dominance. Blew out the Raiders, blew out the Commanders, blew out the Dolphins 48-20, and really took a lot of air out of the early season Miami balloon. And then after that, they went to London, and they lost something on the way across the Atlantic Ocean because they lost to the Jaguars. And along the way, and I can't get the order of games just right, but they've had 2 losses and 2 wins. And the 2 wins could have easily been losses. That Giants game felt like it was going to be a loss. And they end up escaping with uncalled pass interference in the end zone on an untimed down. Otherwise, they could have lost to the Giants. And then they had, and I know this gets Bills fans upset, because what about Mike Evans? And what about this? And what about that? Well, bottom line is, there was uncalled pass interference on the Bills on the Hail Mary. Cade Otton was in the middle of the Malachi crunch, and that should have been an untimed down from the 1. So they could be 0-4 since going 3-1. They're lucky to have those 2 wins. This is, and Charean, I mentioned this last week as the Buccaneers game was approaching, we are going to see the Bills in big spots every week until Week 17, either prime time, standalone, or 4:25 Eastern. A lot of focus on the Bills. And Brandon Beane, their GM, said this week, we're still forming our identity. It's November. And I know that it really doesn't get going until Thanksgiving. That's one of the Belichick things. But I'd like to think by November, you've formed your identity. The question is whether or not your identity is going to work. Is your identity a real, legitimate card, or is it a McLovin fake ID? Like, you at least have your identity by the time you get to November. That was one of the strangest comments of the week for me.
And they may be the only contender that you say we're still trying to form our identity. I think we know what the rest of the teams are. If you start looking at maybe not the 49ers. Maybe they're still trying to form their identity. But the rest of the contenders, I really think we know who they are at this point. We know they have a chance to win. And I'm just still so up in the air on the Bills. So, the fifth-rated offense and fourth in scoring, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like, what are we going to get this week? Are we going to see the team we saw against Miami, or the team we saw against the Giants, or the team we saw lay an egg overseas? You just don't know what you're going to get out of them every week. So, yeah, you would think by now you would have an identity. You would know what you are. You would know how to win games weekly. And I don't think they do. I think they're still trying to figure it out.
I think the 49ers have an identity. They just have hit a rough patch where their identity isn't working. They don't have Deebo Samuel. The defense, for whatever reason, hasn't been stepping up. But that's their identity. We know who the 49ers are. We don't know who the Bills are. And I think it's pretty damn important to figure it out quickly. And this is their opportunity to craft an identity under the bright lights of Sunday Night Football with 25 million watching as the Bills take on the Bengals. And we know what the Bengals' identity is.
Yep.
It's be grateful Joe Burrow is healthy because he's a stone-cold killer. And the bigger the stakes, the more he shows up. That's the concern. That's why I look at -2, and I think, what am I missing here? This is the kind of game for which Joe Burrow lives. Some folks end up on the big stage, and they go Cindy Brady when the red light came on. Some get on the big stage and they get better. They crave that opportunity. It's not a negative, it's a positive. Here I am. Here's what I can do. I am going to kick ass and take names. That's Joe Burrow. So now that he's healthy, and after we saw what they did to the 49ers in their own building last Sunday, that's a hostile environment, tough place to win. The Bengals going to win by 14, and it could have been worse. I don't know what I'm missing here. Because Burrow's 100%, and when he's 100%, the Bengals are tough to beat, especially in games where they have their full focus and attention on showing up and putting on a display.
It seems like ages ago when Joe Burrow played that first game and had under 100 yards against the Browns. Last 3 games, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, Mike. He's been unbelievable, and you're right. He steps up in the biggest moments. He loves the spotlight. He loves the big games, and he performs his best in those games. So 100%, I'm with you. I see the 2 points. And I'm like, how is that not more with how Joe Burrow is playing right now and how up and down the Bills are? So apparently, and Vegas is usually right, apparently we're missing something.
It feels like a trap. And if it is, I'm walking right into it. I think the Bengals win. I think the Bengals cover. We'll see what happens on Sunday night. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.